Now, testimony could wrap up this week, and we could see the beginning of closing arguments by Thursday. But to help break down last week's events and to take a look at the week ahead, legal analyst David Bartick is here.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Deborah. Good morning, Artie.
First of all, let's talk about your opinion on whether or not this is going to go to the jury this week.
Very well. Yeah, that's a big question at this point. If Judge Mudd keeps his schedule, basically we've got Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. He's been dark every Friday. There's probably about a day, day and a half, maybe a prosecution rebuttal. The defense have indicated that they have maybe a day of SIR rebuttal. In other words, they're able to bring some additional witnesses as a result of the prosecution's last few witnesses. So there's a possibility this case may actually go to the jury as early as this Thursday. But if not, then it'll probably be the first of next week.
Now, court is dark tomorrow, at least for testimony. It picks up again on Tuesday with the prosecution expected to call in their own entomologist. Last week and presumably on Tuesday, we're going to hear more, at times graphic testimony about bugs and the bugs that were found on Danielle Van Dam's body. How do you think this is playing out before the jury? Because it does at times get a little bit graphic.
Absolutely, Artie. There's no question that the jury and, of course, San Diego community and nationally, we've heard a lot about blowflies, a lot about decomposition of bodies, and it is very graphic and very difficult to visualize and to hear this testimony. But there's no doubt that this is very important to this trial, specifically in regard to the defense. They have basically indicated that their strongest argument, and at opening statement they specifically indicated that Mr. Westerfield would be rescued by the science. And of course, what they were referring to is the fact that the time of death of this body, of Danielle, when it was found, the defense is trying to demonstrate that at the time of the death, it could not have been done by Mr. Westerfield because of the fact that he was under surveillance. So it's this time of death, and unfortunately the only true experts that can bring this to light to the jury are these entomologists, the anthropologists, and the testimony unfortunately is very graphic.
And in your opinion, is that enough to raise a reasonable doubt?
Deborah, that's an excellent question. And basically what's happening here is we have a battle of experts, which is not unusual in these type of cases. And of course the prosecution basically is trying to bring in their experts, the defense is bringing their experts. The prosecution would like the experts basically to to contradict each other and cross themselves out and therefore rely on the DNA evidence. Whereas the defense is trying to show that this is not junk science, that this is very critical evidence, and therefore to show that there's no way that Mr. Westerfield could have committed this offense.
Some very interesting events last week. We heard from David Westerfield's son. And many say he did not help his father's case. Let's listen to a portion of what he had to say on the witness stand last week.
You know if your father had any pornography in the house?
Yes.
How do you know?
I found some on his computer and I found some on discs in his office.
And that would seem to derail the defense's argument that suggested the pornography was downloaded by his son.
Deborah, this was very effective evidence for the prosecution. You're absolutely right. In other words, what Neil Westerfield was able to do is clearly demonstrate, at least with his words, that the child pornography that was found on the computer, also on the bookshelf, belonged to David Westerfield. This is a witness that the jury was listening very closely to, basically at the edge of their seat, because this is the closest individual they get to David Westerfield. He did not testify during this trial, and so his son is somebody who knows him better than anybody else. And so this evidence certainly was very damaging to the defense.
It's interesting because even though the people who were watching the trial at the time, the judge did not allow us to take pictures of Neil Westerfield, I was actually inside the courtroom for the afternoon portion of his testimony, and young, good-looking kid, calm, just the facts, at times even appearing smiling and very much at ease, and the jury was sold. They were intently listening to what he had to say.
Truly. I mean, he was basically what you can call an innocent bystander who's kind of thrown into this, someone who clearly loved his father, and somebody who, for that reason, the jury realizes if he can say anything favorable to his dad, he's going to do that. Yeah. But he certainly was truthful on the stand in a very difficult situation, certainly had empathy for him as a witness.
Yeah. All right. The prosecution called a forensic anthropologist to refute the defense bug experts that we were talking about earlier. Let's give a listen to Dr. Bill Rodriguez on the stand.
And I will tell you today that even as advanced science as we have today, there is no precise, accurate method for determining time since death or that postmortem interval. Someone tells you that, they were either there at the scene and committed a murder.
And that's an interesting statement because it speaks toward what you were talking about earlier, where the prosecution is trying to say, look, this is not an exact science.
Absolutely. And Dr. Rodriguez was a very effective witness, what I would call a professional witness. You saw him, he looks directly at the jury. You see him pointing, clarifying things with his glasses. He came across very well. But absolutely, Artie, what he is trying to indicate is DNA evidence is hard scientific evidence. He's telling the jury, this DNA evidence you can rely on. It's been corroborated, substantiated. In contrast to the testimony of the entomologist, the anthropologist, where it's not a hard science and something, therefore, that the jury should not have as much credibility with as they do with the DNA.
Right.
And outside the presence of the jury, the judge admonished the media twice this past week. Let's take a listen of one of those moments.
If it happens again, the television camera goes, the still camera goes, the live radio input is off. This is serious. I will not tolerate it.
Judge Mudd, they're referring to the case of someone following jurors to their cars and writing down license plate information, presumably to get information for whatever reason, we don't know. We still don't know who that person is, but he seems to be taking it out on the media.
Absolutely. And Deborah, I think what Judge Mudd doing is reinforcing that he's going to maintain complete control of this courtroom, which is what he does so well. There's no question that was a breach of the integrity of the trial with somebody basically following these jury members, going to the garage where the vehicle was located at and attempting to take down the license plate number. He's going to protect these jurors. He's going to protect the integrity of the trial. And he's warning the media at that point that he certainly, even though he doesn't have direct control over them, he certainly has control of the cameras and everything that occurs within that courtroom. And if he has to cut the media off because he's fearful that's going to impact this trial, Judge Mudd will definitely do it.
I've got to say, though, that even though a lot of people will suggest and think that some people or whoever was responsible for this did cross the ethical line, the attorney for the media suggested, look, no laws were broken, no court orders were violated. It's obviously a very sticky issue.
Absolutely. I mean, technically, there was no direct violation of any court order that Judge Mudd has made, so you're absolutely correct.
All right. David Bartick, thank you very much. Should be a very interesting week.
Thanks for your expertise.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.